Yo,
What up, though?
I got to talk. I gotta tell what I feel. Gotta talk about my life as I see it.
All right then. It's time for you to bring it to the table.
Turn up your radio wherever you at. We about to bring it.
Street Beat
with Tony B.
For the next hour, Tony B will give you a chance to tackle local, national, and international issues that affect your community. Street Beat. Street Beat.
Tony.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of Street Beat. It's me, your host, Tony B, the beat of the city. If you don't know by now, is the Best Starts for Kids virtual summit that's been taking place, well, all week. Well, Tuesday was the kickoff, but Monday was preview day, and we had a great time on Monday. And as a matter of fact, there was a lot going on at the summit virtually on Monday as well. Here we are Thursday. Today, lots going on today, a ton going on today at the 9:30. Reginald and Jessica will be joining you, and they'll give you the lowdown on everything that's taking place today, and there's a lot going on today. Look, here's the deal. If you're part of the challenge, the Building Community Impacts Challenge, which is the title of the conference, you're going to get your opportunity to get your 50 points here pretty quickly. All right. If you're not familiar with the Building Community Impacts Challenge, you could be earning points so that you could win a prize. It's the Best Starts for Kids Summit Communities Building Impact. Wow. It's been happening all weekend and it's been phenomenal. We're just excited. It's been networking. It's been peer-to-peer learning. You found out a lot about what Best Starts for Kids is doing. There have been breakout sessions. There have been virtual fun activities. We've had an opportunity to meet some of the Best Starts for Kids champions. And, okay, for those of you keeping score at home, if you're keeping your challenge points here, here's some information for you. Our first guest is going to be Kente Bryant, Program Director for Peps, Program for Early Parent Support. Kente, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing great. I am calling in from the sunny, high-altitude city of Colorado Springs.
All right. Well, we've had some pretty spectacular weather here in Seattle. It was a little, it actually did rain a little earlier, but I think that we needed that to kind of calm the dust down. But then I'm ready for the sun again.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start off. And I'd like to welcome everyone from joining us, and welcome everyone who's joining us, and thank you for joining us for the Best Starts for Kids Summit. And as we do all the time, let's first get some information about you, and then get some information about the programs for early learning, early parent support, Peps.
Okay. So again, my name is Kente Bryant. I am the program director at Peps. I have been there for about 4 years. I have sort of an eclectic background in my professional career. Started in environmental education, and I worked at a nonprofit in Seattle for a while doing environmental ed. And then from there, went on to work at one of the local community colleges in Seattle. And then 4 years ago, started at Peps. Yeah.
Okay. And programs for early parent support. Let's talk a little bit about PEPS, which is the acronym for that, and what you do, and who you serve, who your clients are, and your mission.
Okay. Well, our mission is to bring parents together and provide, help them create a network of support and community. Mm-hmm. We have been around for about 40 years. The organization started back in the mid-'80s in an effort to provide support for new parents. And over the years, we have grown bigger and bigger. And now we primarily serve families in Seattle who are entering new parenthood. So primarily, we serve parents who have babies or newborns between the ages of about 2 weeks to 14 to 16 weeks old. And they participate in a neighborhood-based 12-week program that they meet for 2 hours a week. And it's led by a facilitator. And the whole purpose of it is to create an experience for new parents to share that new parent experience with other new parents in order to support each other during that transition time and create community. We are now moving into the realm of wanting to help support, offer peer support programming for parents of teens and adolescents. That is another big transition period where parents often feel a bit of isolation, which is similar to how parents can feel with a newborn. So we are working, and actually that's our connection with BSK. We received a grant to help us move that effort forward to start creating some programs for parents who have adolescents and teens.
Wow, that's a very needed program, and I say that because as a parent, I understand you need support. If you're a parent out there, you probably understand you need support. If you're about to become a parent, then you're probably thinking to yourself, how am I going to do this? But just clarify for us why you exist and why it's important to have programs in place to support parents.
Well, the why we exist, again, in the early 80s when this program was created, it was actually created by a few psychologists who recognized that the evidence at that time that still continues now, that isolation of new parents can often contribute to parents experiencing PMAS, which is perinatal mood and anxiety disorder. They experience isolation, and to some extent there can be a greater risk of child abuse in situations where parents are feeling these different things. And these psychologists realize that a way to alleviate or sort of block this happening is to put new parents together so that they can support one another, so that they can find sort of connection with other parents who might be experiencing the same thing. And this is a way for them to share with one another how to offer support and suggestions and ideas about how to get through these challenges. And it helps to break down isolation because you have a community of other people who might be experiencing some of the same things. And those could be positive things as well as the potential for negative things that might come up for new parents. That experience now, as we shift towards wanting to offer this kind of support for parents of teens, is very similar. And we realized and heard from actually past participants in our groups for new parents of newborns that as their children are now moving and transitioning into middle school and high school, that there is, again, this need for connection, community, to help alleviate some of the isolation and things that can potentially come up even with this transition into teenage years.
Well, let's talk. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I couldn't remember the second part of your question, but go ahead.
Well, that was basically it. Well, explain to us, the need for parental support. But I want to talk about it in the different phases because it does look different. Parenting a newborn is different than parenting a teenager.
Yes, yes.
And there may be a concept that it's just parenting. So let's talk about that. You mentioned that folks get together in groups and have what again we call the peer-to-peer sharing of challenges and also successes. But let's talk about and I'm guessing that there's also a person there who offers the support, who represents what you do. Let's talk about the difference in the challenges between parenting a newborn and then it's still parenting, but parenting a teenager. Let's start with the newborn.
Okay, so the experiences of a parent of a newborn, one is one of the bigger ones I would say is just this transition of your life, having a significant change of sort of you and your partner are the two people that have been, the point of focus in your relationship. And then additionally, now you're adding this new human being that you actually have to take care of and make sure you keep alive in many different ways, that can create a lot of pressure for the partnership of the parents. But also just all of these new things that you have to think about: feeding, sleeping, emotional development of your child, and the emotional changes that happen in the parents raising a newborn, and just all of those things. And often we have families who join Peps groups who might be the first of their group of friends who have a newborn baby, so they don't have anyone else to necessarily connect with on that. And even receiving help and advice from families or other family members doesn't necessarily quite hit the spot if a sister or a friend has had a baby 2 or 3 years ago. It's not the same as being in the middle. So getting a group of people together who are all experiencing this newborn phase of life is really an important thing to offer, to be able to offer support in real time. So one of the differences too, though, is in a group full of parents with newborns, you're not really having to, the newborn baby is not participating. It's just there sleeping, eating, providing a lot of entertainment for the families that are there. Then you move into that transitional stage of moving into adolescence and teens. And there's a whole nother level of how the interaction is between the parents, because their children are now old enough to have their own autonomy and talk about the things that are happening.
Say that again.
So it's a different transition in that with a newborn, you're not getting that feedback. When you move into adolescence and teenage years, you were getting a lot of feedback from your teenager.
A whole lot of feedback.
And also trying to create their own autonomy, which can be a challenge for parents, and they need support from other people who, again, might be experiencing the same thing. The other part of your question, as far as who is there to help support, we have trained facilitators who participate in our newborn groups to help facilitate the conversations that they have each week. We let our facilitators know that they don't have to be an expert in any specific area of the topics that we talk about. What they are there to do is help create community by offering suggestions and advice and ways to help the group connect. Our adolescents and teens program is newly being formatted, so we haven't quite offered any groups yet. We are in the formation stage of that. And because of some of the trickier things that adolescents and teens experience socially, we're thinking that there might be more of a professional lean to our facilitators for those groups to enable to better support our parents who participate in that program.
Wow, this is great information, Kente. I wish we had more time. It feels like we just got started, and we could be having we do know now, especially with the pandemic in place, we don't know how this is impacting those infants who are going through this, because they can't communicate with us. They can't tell. And what we do know is that the stressors that parents feel, that's going to transfer to that infant.
It's definitely magnified right now with this pandemic going on. If I could just give a little shout out as we wrap up.
Yep.
So we have had to transition our groups that used to be all in person to virtual groups online, and that has been very successful. And I want to give a shout out to one of the other organizations in Seattle, folks, Families of Color Seattle, who also provide peer support groups and it is through the lens of racial equity and social justice. And they are providing great support as well for families in Seattle. So if there are families of color who would like to participate in groups out there, our groups are more neighborhood based. Folks, they are more drawing families from around the Seattle area and broader in order to participate in groups with other people of color who want that racial justice or social justice, racial equity lens as the filter for their peer support group. So I just want to give a shout out to them. Okay. They're also doing their groups virtually.
I'm going to give you about 30 seconds here, even though we're over time. Just quickly tell me about your session and what's going to be involved in your session.
You know what? Our session actually was yesterday. Okay. We did the table. We had a tabling, so there were a couple of other staff folks from Peps there yesterday, and I know that they had several, about 20 or 30 people who stopped by to learn a little bit more about the work that Peps does in the area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Kente, thank you for joining us. We may have to get you back on again sometime and have a greater discussion about this, because I wasn't making light of it. When you talked about sleep, I was like, that's a real thing. And
Yes.
when you talked about the youth at that point beginning to want to express their autonomy, oh, that is a real thing too. And but just great information. Thank you for being part of Best Starts for Kids Summit and being a Best Starts for Kids champion. Thank you so much, Kente.
Thank you. It was great to be here. Thank you so much.
All right, you are listening to Street Beat. It's me, your host, Tony B. It's Thursday morning. We're happy to be here again for the Best Starts for Kids Summit. And joining me is Yolanda McGee. Yolanda, how are you? Hello, Yolanda.
I'm great. I'm great.
Oh, there you are. Hey, Yolanda. And Latasha was joining you too as well. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Latasha, are you here?
I'm here, Tony.
Fantastic to have both of you here. Let's start off. Yolanda, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then tell us a little bit about Restore, Assemble, Produce.
Well, so I'm Yolanda, and I'm actually the program manager for the Best Starts for Kids Trauma Informed and Restorative Practices in the school environment and beyond. So I'm actually the program manager. And Miss Latasha is the rap leader in our village. And so she'll be talking about her program and how we're doing this work collectively together as a village.
All right.
So yeah, so just a little bit about me. I'm a community member, I'm a parent. I'm driven and I'm called to do this work. And I love what I do. I feel very honored. I feel very privileged. And I'm just excited about the work that we're doing in the village. So what I would say is the strategy, we call ourselves the village, as you hear me saying. There's 30 organizations we have funded, and 25 of those organizations are CBOs, POC led, people of color led. We also funded schools, a district, and also that early learning that you all was talking about was very important. So even though my strategy area is 5 to 24, we knew that it was important to catch them early. So we included that population in this body of work. And we serve over 10 school districts throughout the Martin Luther King County. Okay, so we partner with schools throughout the county to implement creative, authentic partnership. And we're implementing innovative approaches to addressing really racial trauma and promoting healing-centered responsive practices in the school environment. So the village focus have been really the impact of racial, institutional, and systemic racism in the educational system. So we don't really solely focus on the ACEs. I'm sure you heard of when we talk about trauma, we talk about the ACEs, adverse childhood experience. But what our mission and vision is to really look at, and we've coined this phrase, the power of belief, going beyond the individual trauma of scholars and families that they have experienced, but to focus on supporting the development of a scholar's identity, their self-discovery, their greatness, their purpose, and their brilliance. And with that, we have trusted adults in those school environments that actually look like them, that they know that they're there to have their back, and they help them with that sense of belonging in an environment that we all know was designed to fail our Black and Brown scholars.
Wow.
And so, So secondly, I'll say that our goal is to support improving school cultures and climate. So our programs provide cultural responsive curriculum. And like I said earlier, restorative practices, and we promote the voices of youth and their leadership development. And thirdly, our core values as a village, one, we are leading with racial justice, and I said that a lot. We seek collaboration for empowerment, and we're focusing on the whole child. And that includes the parents and the family, right? And we're developing skills that promote healing. And I'll say finally, before I let my sister take the mic, that we work collectively as a village. From the beginning, we built a foundation to have an understanding that this was not just about organizations receiving dollars to do their work. That if we really wanted to focus on the impacts of dismantling systemic racism and institutionalized oppression, we must come together and work together in unity and in love. And so our mission is to tell that counter story, that counter narrative, and we're doing it as a collective. So I'm excited to be leading this body of work.
Now, Yolanda, one more again. I got program manager. Tell me what that title was again. Program manager for.
So it's called Trauma Informed and Restorative Practices in the School Environment. But what we did was we changed the narrative. We made the focus about racial and institutional trauma and the impacts of that in the school environment and the institution, like I said, that was designed not to have, our people be successful.
Recently I was talking to someone and who's the CEO and principal of a school, and one of the things that they do at that school is they make sure that they call their students scholars, and they don't call them marginalized. They don't call them, any of those other words that bring a sense of we're not worthy or we're less than. They call them the global majority. What do you think about that?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
What are your thoughts about that, Yolanda?
So I was talking fast, but I never said student as I was talking, right? I said scholars.
There you go.
So that is what we call our young folks, scholars, because we want them to understand that they got to even reprogram the way they think about themselves. Because like I said, that institution, like I think about myself and I think about the ACEs, and I have a high ACE score if you want to look at that. But to tell you the truth, the impact that the school institution did on me was more of a lasting impact than what happened in my childhood, because it told me who I was. And I had to undo it. So it wasn't done to me, but it was, telling me who I was. So I had to learn how to undo that lie to get to the truth, right? And it was the community that helped me get to the truth of who I am. And that's what we were talking about, the brilliance, your purpose, discovering who you really are. And so that's what our partners are here to do. We're helping to guide those scholars and those families along this process so they can be their greatest self.
All right. Yolanda, I'm loving your energy this morning, because what we're talking about here is truly important. And thank you so much for bringing that energy to the table this morning.
All right.
Best Starts for Kids Program Manager, Yolanda McGee, Trauma-Informed Restorative Practices.
So I want to make sure my sister get a little talk.
I'm getting. I got you. I got you. I got you. Now, I said Latasha. Is it Latasha?
It's Latasha. Absolutely. I'm from the South.
Okay, Latasha Jackson Rodriguez. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Tony. Thank you for having me.
Founder, Executive Director of RAP, Restore, Assemble, and Produce. Let's start by talking about you, Latasha. Give us some background information on yourself, and then let's talk about Restore, Assemble, Produce, RAP.
Okay, so, I am the Executive Director and founder of RAP. Just as Miss Yolanda, in the village, we call her the visionarian. As she said before, she was called to this. I also know that I was called to this work as well. We work with the youth and families down here in the city of Kent, in the South Kent County area. It's something I just kind of want to jump right quick, because you guys were talking about scholars. And that's what one of our programs under RAP is called Axios. And we named it Axios because it's a Greek term that means worthy, valuable. And so that's with this particular grant with Best Start for Kids, we're really focused in the school system, because even though our children and families have been going through a lot of historical trauma or various traumas, period, there also is what we call in racial trauma within the system. And so in that place where we are positioned inside of the community as well as inside of the school, where we can go in, and this is what Best Starts for Kids have allowed us to do with this particular grant, is actually, I call it enlarging our territory, where we can reach more kids within the school systems. And that is what you're going to have to really build a lot of relationships within the school and build those partnerships where it allow us to go in and train these teachers, in areas of when we talk implicit biases, racial equity, cultural competency, policies and system changes, and what restorative practices look like within the school. So instead of having our kids and they're just a number and they're just a dollar, we kind of hold them accountable. Hold them accountable to our children and making sure that they have in the best environment to be able to thrive and have a sense of belonging as possible. Also, we're real strongly focused on parent engagement, because at the end of the day, our parents, we don't want them to lose their power to the system. And so that is where we come in and we educate. Best Start for Kids and our whole village. We're focusing on our babies, on our scholars, if you may say, and our parents in engagement, where we have this one thing. I'm kind of trying to make sure I cover a lot of things because it's very important. We have in our parent engagement called Take Back My Kids. In this, we empower these parents to be able to advocate for themselves, advocate for each other. We educate them on what their rights as a parent is, knowing and understanding what 504 and IEPs are, and so on and so forth. But in this work, that what I love about the village, and that's what we call ourselves here with this Best Start for Kids grant that we have, Miss Yolanda is our visionarian, and that's what we call her. What we do, we are broken down, and what Miss Yolanda, along with the administrative team, we were broken down into what we first call a steering committee. And this is where the collective come together. Some leads in the collective come together.
Yolanda, I just want to warn you. I got to get off the air in about 45 seconds.
45 seconds.
Yeah, and I'm enjoying this conversation so much.
Okay, well,
I just want you to get it in.
Okay, so to wrap it up,
yeah,
the Best Start for Kids, we all, I believe, are called to this work. We all are doing that work, and we're going after our youth and our families, and we bring a sense of belonging back into the community. We are causing people to be accountable for this racial trauma that they're also placing on our children. So I just want to thank you for this opportunity to even be a part of this village with the Best Start for Kids.
We're going to do this again because this is important stuff, and I want to talk to both of you again and have extended conversations. Can we make that happen at some point?
Absolutely.
All right. That's it. That's all the time that I have. That's going to do it for the kid. I've enjoyed being part of the Best Starts for Kids Summit. We won't be here tomorrow, so this is the last time you'll hear from us at Rainier Avenue Radio. Thanks to Best Start for